June 15th, 1944. 7:42 a.m. Saipan, Western Pacific. The sea is already loud. Waves slam against coral. Engines growl overhead. A Japanese pilot grips his controls and looks down through broken clouds. Smoke rises from the shoreline. Not from burning ships. From land. From something new. Bulldozers crawl across the beach like metal insects. Trucks follow behind them. Men jump out, wearing helmets and carrying rifles and shovels. Explosions echo as naval guns hammer inland. The ground shakes. Dust fills the air. The pilot banks left. He expects tents, expects foxholes. Instead, he sees steel planks laid side by side. Long, straight, precise. A runway is forming in real time. Anti-aircraft fire snaps upward. Black bursts bloom near his wings. He pulls up, heart racing. Below him, American engineers keep working. They do not stop. They do not hide. They build. Within hours, fighters will land where jungles stood the day before. Bombers will follow. Fuel trucks will roll. Ammunition will stack. The pilot radios back, voice tight. He struggles to explain what he saw. Portable airfields, built under fire. On islands meant to be fortresses, this moment feels impossible. But it is only the surface of a much larger story. If you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. The idea did not begin in the Pacific. It began with a problem. Distance. After Pearl Harbor, the United States faced an enemy spread across thousands of miles of ocean. Aircraft carriers could strike fast, but they could not stay forever. Long-range bombers needed land bases. Fighters needed short distances to operate. Islands were the only stepping stones. Most Pacific islands had no airfields. Many were jungle, coral, or swamp. Traditional concrete runways took months to build. War did not allow that time. American planners turned to the Navy construction battalions. The Seabees was created in 1942. These units mixed engineers and combat troops. They could fight, they could build. It's often at the same time. Their solution was speed and simplicity. Steel marston matting, later called PSP, pierced steel planking. Each piece was 10 feet long, 1 foot wide. Holes reduced weight and helped drainage. Men could carry it by hand. Bulldozers could lay it fast. A runway could appear in days, sometimes hours. Fighters like the F-6F Hellcat needed about 1,200 feet to land. Medium bombers needed more, but not much more. The Seabees also brought portable fuel tanks, prefabricated hangars, radar sets, and power generators. Everything broke down into pieces that fit on ships. The strategy was clear. Capture an island, build an airfield, use it to support the next attack. Leapfrog forward, cut Japanese supply lines. Bring the war closer to Japan itself. At first, many doubted it would work. Early efforts were messy and dangerous. On Guadalcanal in 1942, the first airfield became a nightmare. Henderson Field was hacked out of jungle by hand and machine. Japanese shelling destroyed equipment. Aircraft landed on rough dirt. Engines sucked in dust. Accidents were common. One Seabee wrote, "The runway is barely flat. We fix it at night. It breaks by morning." Steel matting bent under heavy aircraft. Early bulldozers overheated. Coral shredded tires. Rain turned ground into mud. On Tarawa, the coral base cracked landing gear. Several aircraft flipped on touchdown. Japanese commanders mocked the idea. Reports dismissed the runways as temporary. Too exposed, too fragile. One message described them as metal strips that cannot last. Training was also rushed. Many Seabees were former carpenters and mechanics. Few had built airfields under fire. Casualties mounted. On some islands, construction units took 10 to 20% losses in the first week. There were tactical mistakes. Airfields were sometimes placed too close to beaches, making them easy artillery targets. Fuel dumps exploded. Aircraft burned before ever taking off, pilots complained. The strip is too short, the surface shakes. One bad landing and you're dead. But the work continued. Lessons were learned and something changed. By 1943, the Seabees adapted. They surveyed terrain faster. They learned how coral behaved under weight. They layered crushed coral beneath steel matting. Drainage improved. Runways lasted longer. They discovered speed was protection. The faster an airfield became operational, the sooner fighters could defend it. On average, a usable strip could be built in 5 days, sometimes less. Commanders adjusted tactics. Airfields were placed inland when possible. Camouflage nets hid fuel tanks. Decoy strips confused enemy pilots. The steel matting proved stronger than expected. It handled fighters, bombers, even heavy transports. When damaged, sections could be replaced in minutes. Pilots began to trust the strips. Landing speeds were predictable. The surface held in rain. Takeoff runs shortened as experience grew. One Hellcat pilot noted, "It feels rough, but it works. You come in low and steady. The plane sticks." The biggest strength was flexibility. If an island flooded, the field could move. If artillery found the range, repairs happened overnight. Air power followed the infantry closely. Fighters provided cover within hours of a landing. Bombers struck deeper targets sooner than the Japanese expected. What began as a gamble became a system, and soon it was tested in combat again and again. On November 20th, 1943, Tarawa Atoll. The landing was brutal. Japanese defenses were dense, casualties were high. While infantry fought for survival, Seabees came ashore with bulldozers. Shells landed nearby, snipers fired from palm trees. Well, the work started. By day 3, steel planking stretched across coral flats. On November 28th, the first aircraft landed. Japanese pilots returned to bomb the island. They expected chaos. Instead, they found fighters already waiting. A Zero pilot later recalled, "They were there too soon. We did not understand how." In February 1944, Quiling, 2 small islands, ROI and Namur, Seabees landed behind assault troops. Then 4 days, 2 runways were operational. Fighters flew combat air patrols over the fleet. Bombers struck nearby atolls. One Seabee officer said, "We built while they shot, fixed while they shelled." June 1944, Saipan. The island was large and heavily defended. Construction teams worked under artillery fire. Japanese guns targeted bulldozers. Crews took cover, then returned. By June 18th, only 3 days after landing, a fighter strip was usable. Hellcats began flying ground support missions. Japanese counterattacks failed under constant air pressure. A Japanese officer wrote later, "Their planes came from the ground we had not yet lost." In March 1945, Iwo Jima, volcanic ash swallowed equipment. The ground shifted. Nothing behaved as expected. Still, Seabees adapted. They mixed ash with seawater. They layered matting thicker than before. Within days, emergency strips appeared. Damaged bombers returning from Japan began landing. Over 2,400 B-29s made emergency landings on Iwo Jima during the war. Many crews survived because a runway existed where none should have. One pilot said quietly, "That island saved my life." These airfields were not pretty. They were not permanent. But they worked, and they changed the tempo of the war. By late 1944, American industry supported the system fully. Over 400,000 Seabees served during the war. They built more than 400 airfields in the Pacific. Factories produced millions of steel planks. Ships carried bulldozers, graders, fuel tanks, and generators by the thousands. Logistics flowed steadily. Compared to Japanese airfield construction, the difference was stark. Japan relied on fixed bases built slowly with limited machinery. Once damaged, repairs took weeks. American doctrine emphasized rapid deployment. Aircraft moved forward constantly. Sortie rates increased. Fighters flew multiple missions per day from island strips. Fuel and ammunition stocks grew. On major bases, thousands of tons were stored. Maintenance crews kept aircraft operational close to the front. The result was sustained air pressure. Japanese forces lost the ability to recover. Supply lines were cut. Reinforcements never arrived. The portable airfield became a weapon itself. For Japanese pilots and ground troops, the effect was crushing. They expected pauses. They expected time. It never came. Diaries mentioned confusion. The enemy airfields appear overnight. We bomb them, but they return. Slang names emerged. Some called them iron beaches. Others called them ghost runways. Morale suffered. Air attacks came from directions once thought safe. Retreat offered no relief. Even captured islands became launch points. One infantryman wrote, We fight for days. Then planes come from behind us. Fear grew. The sense of being hunted intensified. There was no rear area anymore. By 1945, Japanese pilots knew the pattern. Landings meant airfields. Fields meant defeat. Late in the war, the system evolved again. Runways grew longer. Heavy bombers used them. Radar installations improved early warning. Anti-aircraft defenses integrated with air operations. Concrete replaced steel in some locations. But steel remained vital. Temporary strips supported invasions and emergency landings until permanent bases formed. Night operations increased. Lighting systems improved. Navigation aids guided damaged aircraft home. The Seabees refined everything. Faster surveys, better drainage, stronger surfaces, fewer casualties. When the war ended, the network stretched across the Pacific, a chain of metal and coral that carried air power to Japan's doorstep. The legacy is clear. Portable airfields enabled island hopping. They saved lives. They multiplied combat power. Early doubt gave way to hard respect. A Japanese veteran later said, "We fought their soldiers, but we could not fight their machines and their speed." The steel runways proved that in modern war, mobility decides outcomes. America did not just bring planes across the ocean, it brought the ground with them.